Hi, welcome to Town Meeting TV's ongoing coverage of the election season. This year, during the primary election, on August 11th, the city of South Burlington will see an item on their ballot around the Bartlett Bay Wastewater Treatment Facility. And I am joined today by some folks who are here to talk about that. Andrew Chalnick is a South Burlington City Councilor. Tom DiPietro works with the wastewater treatment facility, and Beth Zigmund is also here from the South Burlington City Council. Thank you. Welcome.
Tom is our Director of Public Works.
Director of Public Works. Thank you so much for correcting me. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So walk us through, what is the Bartlett Bay Wastewater Treatment Facility Upgrade Project? This has been on the ballot before. Why are we seeing it again now?
Well, let me just start off. What is this facility? It's really one of our most important pieces of infrastructure, right? People know what a wastewater plant does, but our wastewater plants are really state of the art, and they help protect Lake Champlain, our most valuable asset. We produce really high quality, effluent from the plant. It's actually higher than the state and federal standards, and we think that's really important. And I think, Tom, you were mentioning it takes out like 99% of the phosphorus, which is an incredible stat. So it's really important that this piece of infrastructure is maintained and functions well, and maintains our water quality for the decades to come. So that's what we're talking about.
If I could just jump in for a second. I just want to make sure the public understands what effluent is. Effluent is the water that comes out of the plant. So if we use that word, it's a technical way of saying the water that we release out of the wastewater treatment facility into the lakes and streams and out, the manholes, et cetera.
And the reason we're here is because the existing facility is doing what it needs to do, but it's not sustainable. There's multiple elements to the facility that, when we all toured it, it honestly seemed like it was on life support and being held together through really heroic efforts of our city staff, and figuring out how to source old parts and figuring out how to keep things going and maintain it. But it's not. We can't really continue to live that way, because it's at great risk unless we fix it and fix it right.
Now, not everybody who lives in South Burlington knows where this treatment facility is, and so can you give us where is it, and what does it do, which you've talked about a little bit. What does the upgrade contemplate? And I guess we'll get into the costs and why we're seeing it on the ballot now.
Yeah, so the facility is located off of Route 7 on Bartlett Bay Road. The city actually has two wastewater treatment facilities, the Airport Parkway plant, which is by the airport, and then this facility down at Bartlett Bay. And then it accepts wastewater from a sewer shed, or kind of an area where wastewater flows to it, basically from Spear Street, kind of headed down towards the lake. Anything in that area that generates wastewater, any buildings, goes to the Bartlett Bay facility.
Does that include stormwater runoff as well, street infrastructure?
It does not. So our facility is not a combined facility like some other communities have, but that doesn't mean that stormwater or rainwater doesn't infiltrate into the system at times, which is one of the aspects that we can talk about of why this is an important upgrade, actually, kind of during the storm events.
Great.
What happens at the plant.
Thanks. Do you have a PowerPoint you want to walk us through?
I was just going to use these as we were kind of having a conversation.
Okay,
But I can give a little bit, so I guess I would mention the facility has been continuously operating for the last 55 years. The last time it saw a major upgrade was about 25 years ago. So the same blowers and pumps and things like that we put in 25 years ago are still operating to the best of their ability today. So one of the reasons we're doing this upgrade is it's a planned upgrade. We don't expect that equipment to last forever, obviously. So every 20 years, actually by permit, we're required to look at the plant and decide what upgrades need to be made or what reconstruction and refurbishment needs to happen. And so that's kind of the process we've undertaken now.
And am I wrong? If this was on the ballot a couple of years back, is that right? Or is this a brand new bond?
So there was a ballot item that was based on some preliminary engineering estimates.
Yeah.
And as we've dug into the details, and Tom can explain that there's a lot of complicated, these plants are incredibly complex. The engineers discovered that, it's more complex and there's more that needs to be done, which is why we need to go out for a new bond. But I think before we get there, maybe it's just important to talk about.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in here as we start talking about cost and the age of the plant, et cetera. The way that I think about this, and the reason I'm voting yes on this bond measure, and by the way, I'm the newest of the city councilors. I've been on the council now for almost exactly 4 months. So I've been a citizen in the town for a much longer time than I've been a councilor. So I'm still thinking about this largely from the perspective of just an ordinary citizen who lives in this town and cares about it. I see infrastructure as one of the most critical core functions of municipal government. We don't notice it. It operates in the background. Our toilets flush, and we don't even think about it. The wastewater, the sewer doesn't spill out of manholes and run into the waterways in Lake Champlain. Having toured this facility, I saw with my eyes that they are literally plugging holes in tanks. There's a point at which that critical infrastructure will fail. So I feel as if this is a really important project. We don't want to get to the point where we hit a tipping point and we notice that, our wastewater facility is failing now, and we're releasing sewage into waterways and Lake Champlain. So, I think that would be really bad for people. I think it would be really bad for the environment. So I just want to put that out there because we're talking about a lot of money here, and I think the city council and the city staff, the city government is sensitive to that fact. But this is really one of the critical functions that the government performs, so it's important infrastructure to fund.
And just maybe to amplify that a little bit, so I think constituents understand where we're at right now. The project is bid. We have a loan from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund at a very low interest rate. And unless we kind of take advantage of that bid and that loan at this point to do everything Beth talked about and Tom talked about, that's so important, we're going to lose those two tremendous financial incentives. And we're going to talk about the incremental cost and what the bond's about, but if we don't do this now, it's even going to get more expensive. So that's why kind of we're all here and why I'm going to vote in favor too, because we need to do this and we really do need to do it right now.
So Beth, you talked a little bit about your view on it as a citizen. I wonder, Tom, if you could just talk a little bit as a public works professional. You're inside this plant. It sort of sounds like you're describing a situation that can't remain as is. I know that at some point we're going to see some images. We did a little walkthrough with video at one point. Mm-hmm. What's your perspective on it as a public works professional who's seeing all of the wastewater of the South Burlington residents flowing down the pipes, and you want to get it cleaned up before it goes back into the lake?
That's right. So it's our preference that our residents and businesses don't have to think about wastewater, right? That's the way it should be. They flush the toilet, it goes to our collection system and arrives at our plant, and no one thinks about it anymore until we have these bond votes. So that's my preference. But yeah, being inside the facility and working with our operators who are there every day, hearing some of the challenges they've had, I'm happy to talk about a little bit of that. So certainly the facility has aged, and there's quite a bit of infrastructure within the facility that we need to replace. One, because it's the end of its useful life, and two, just in 25 years, the efficiency of new equipment, as far as even electrical costs, right? Stuff we can put in today versus 20 years ago is just a vast improvement. So we're seeing degradation of things like steel tanks. We have a tank where we hold sludge. That is basically, when I say sludge, I'm referring to any material that settles out through the treatment process. The settling of material is a primary way that we treat wastewater to get that out of there. Then we have to hold that in the tank. That sludge is then transferred actually to our other facility for additional treatment, but our ability to hold that right now is limited because the old tank has a defect in it. There's some some holes in it, for example, that we've plugged, and we can only fill it up halfway right now. The new design has a new storage holding facility. The existing facility has 3 blowers, so we blow oxygen into the wastewater to feed biological processes for treatment. We are currently down to 1 blower. One has died. Another, we've cannibalized parts to continue making the one that works, and now we just received last week a new motor so we can get that second one back up online. So it's critical to have something like that. The project proposes some new blowers, so the current blowers are either all on or all off. The new ones will be variable, so we can turn them on to the degree necessary to blow air to what the plant requires. So that's going to have major efficiencies, for example, for electrical. And one other just example I'd give of
Keep going.
Another example I'd give of aging infrastructure is the final treatment step in the treatment process, our UV light disinfection. So again, we have these UV lights to kill any pathogens or bacteria and things like that before it gets discharged to Lake Champlain. Those lights are either all on or all off. The controlling mechanism for that broke years ago, and it's no longer serviced by the manufacturer. So we run those lights full on all the time, even though ideally we would run those based on the turbidity and volume of water moving past them, but we can't do that right now. So our operators are excited to have kind of new equipment there that will also be much easier to maintain going forward, which is a big part of kind of modern equipment that's kind of built into the construction and design of it.
Talk a little bit more about that modernization and how in 20 years the treatment of wastewater has changed, and maybe what are some of the impacts. Is there methane gas that's released when you're processing? And I don't really know a lot about it, so help us understand.
Yeah, a couple of exciting topics in that question, really. So one of the things we are including in the project is a digital performance platform. So we have the wastewater plant in the real world, and it's going to have sensors in it. All of this data is going to get sent to a digital twin that lives in the cloud. And we're going to be able to use that to model different behaviors. So it'll learn, it'll understand what happens, and then it will allow us to then tweak conditions in the plant. So maybe we blow more air or less air. And that'll really drive some efficiencies at the plant. We can run some modeling to know and predict what might happen. And we're predicting that's going to have a pretty significant impact in our ability to optimize, use less electricity, certainly optimize maybe treatment performance. We'll have different options, different levers, if you will, that we can pull and adjust in the new plant and get some prediction, and then be able to get that feedback and have just much better control on the plant, that our operators will be able to make better decisions.
There's also we're adding also some really interesting to me efficiency upgrades. So Tom mentioned that we have this really cool software, which is going to be efficient. New pumps are going to be really efficient, and we have a device, a heat exchanger. So when you shower, when you use your sink, your dishwasher, right, all that takes energy. A lot of energy actually goes into the hot water, into the treatment plant. And this device can extract all that energy in hot water and then heat the plant off the back of that. So it's a really cool, efficient thing. And I think Tom was saying that if you kind of project out how much it would have cost to run the plant, to heat the plant, based upon all the infrastructure without this stuff, and you compare it to this stuff, we're saving almost $200,000 a year. With all the new upgrades. And not only are we going to be saving money, but they're really climate friendly. We're going to be reducing the greenhouse gas emissions that we would have otherwise had by 97%. And the number is like 86 metric tons. And it doesn't really mean much to many people, but when I did the math, it's like converting 30 single-family homes from fossil fuel homes to carbon-free homes. So it's really a pretty big impact, and I think it's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and I just, again, I want to make the point that, this is physical infrastructure, and the physical laws of the universe are going to overwhelm this plant at some point. So it's, we have all these wonderful upgrades that would be included with this. It is the second bond that we're asking for, well, we being the city government is asking for on this project, and voters are aware of that because they remember that they voted a few years ago on this project. So I just want
to be clear, that bond vote happened 2 years ago, but there was no money taken down at that point. Is that correct? Or
there was.
Yeah,
and I'll let
we'll
Tom
talk about that
elaborate
a
on
little
that.
bit. Okay.
But yeah, I just want to make the point again that if we don't do this now, it's almost assuredly going to be more expensive in the future because the plant will fail. And as we know, prices are still going up. We've seen more inflation over the last year and a half. There was, the ceasefire in Iran was, basically canceled just yesterday.
Yeah.
And there's already been a spike in oil prices. So, oil is a component of many of the things that are used to manufacture the plant. It goes into the transportation of materials for the plant. There are supply chain issues that could arise. So I just want to emphasize the fact that if this gets kicked down the road, my fear, in fact, I am certain that the cost will be higher if we don't take the opportunity now. And the other thing that goes into that is the fact that, as Andrew pointed out, we have this low interest loan. It's a 2% loan through the state. And if we lose that funding, we have to get back in line behind other municipalities for that low interest loan. So we risk losing that opportunity. So I just wanted to reemphasize those facts because I think that's an important thing that folks will have to consider when they cast their vote.
I think it makes sense actually to just focus on the particular. So we're asking folks to let the city issue a bond of like $16 million. So $16 million more than we needed. And it's probably just important to touch a little bit upon, how we got there and kind of what changed and what's kind of driving that. So I don't know, Tom, you were explaining this. It's tons of factors and refinements in engineering, and maybe we should just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so let me just jump into some of the dollars and cents here for a few minutes. So the history is in March of 23, South Burlington voters approved a bond for $33.8 million that actually included 3 different wastewater projects. The Bartlett Bay plant, which we're talking about today, was the largest part of it, but that also included some improved solids handling at the other wastewater treatment facility that's actually currently under construction, and some pump station upgrades around the Queen City Park neighborhood, which will be happening kind of next as we get through the process of construction and at the plant. So those estimates and those costs were based on what we call a preliminary engineering report, or a PER. So at that point, we had engineers go through the plant, look at how things have aged, look at how performance was happening, and provide an estimate. From there, we move into final engineering. And we do this in coordination with the folks at the state who kind of manage the money, the administrative folks. So we move along with their process, and there's certain windows when we apply. And so we've applied, we've worked through all that with them. And then as we got into final design, as Andrew noted, we learned a couple of things, and conditions have changed, right? So certainly the first item is just generally speaking cost increases. We've seen ongoing construction cost inflation, some of that driven, as Beth mentioned, by just gasoline and oil prices that get factored into everything. And there's also some requirements for Buy America, Build America, BABA, commonly referred to, tariffs on construction materials. All of this sort of happened in the time frame since we did that preliminary engineering, and that really changed some of the costs. But also, as we got into final design, right, we learned a couple of things. One of the important things, so let me start at the point, we did some more geotechnical work, right? We had folks go out and drill some holes in the ground to figure out what was buried. We learned a few things, had to refine some designs there. We had some permit restrictions related to a wetland permit. So we had assumed originally that we'd be able to work kind of in existing areas where there's a building, for example. We learned that there was a wetland abutting on just outside the fence. That buffer encroached on the facility, so we actually have to move our new headworks. And so really what that did is make the design of the plant more confined and compact, which adds difficulty to the constructability, which has certainly added some cost to the project. When a contractor looks at that, they cost estimate that out differently than an engineer does, right? Because they have to actually build it. And I would note, this facility has to keep treating all the wastewater that flows to it during construction, which is a major challenge. We can't, stop everything, can't stop the water from flowing downhill to the plant while we do construction. And I would say another big thing we learned as we got into final engineering was regarding some wet weather events. So we actually had a big storm that occurred shortly after we did our preliminary engineering report, and it almost overwhelmed the facility. It just increased the flow that came. And this is not, again, we don't have a combined system. This is just water that infiltrates in. Maybe people have in the sewer shed have connected their rooftops to the sewer, which is against the ordinance, but we know that still exists out there, or maybe just water's infiltrating into manholes or things of that nature. So with that knowledge, we had the engineers go back, and one of the things that we all agree needed to happen was to add a clarifier, which is just a big concrete tank, basically, where the wastewater settles. Right now, the facility has 2 clarifiers, and it really needs a third, because we can, at the moment, during regular conditions, we can limp the plant along on one, but we really need the third one so that we can actually take the clarifiers down for maintenance. And so that'll allow us to handle big storms, be able to do recurring maintenance on a regular basis without kind of putting us in danger of overwhelming the plant. So that change also added some cost.
And I'd like to just jump in here for a second, because I think the information that Tom just provided about wet weather events is really important, because we know there's evidence that we're going to see more wet weather in the future. So this particular design will position us very well for that eventual, unfortunately not gradual, increase in the amount of severe wet weather that we're going to see. So.
Tell me, we have 10 minutes left, or a little less now. So let's get to the numbers. What's the bond vote? What's the full amount that folks are going to vote on August 11th? What does that turn into for the full amount that it will cost? What's the impact on ratepayers if I'm living in South Burlington? What's going to be the difference for me in my wastewater bill?
Yeah, no, so we mentioned the bond is around another $16.5 million or so, and the total raised over the 3 years would be around $50 million. We have a chart. Beth, did you want to speak to that? We have a chart, right?
Yeah,
the impacts.
So these are the projected increases. So the bottom line is what you would see even without passing this bond. The rates are going to go up. And we have another slide that's really important on this topic as well. With the additional $16.4 million loan, if the voters pass that bond, then your rates would go up by the amount that you see on the top. So it's really just an incremental increase of about 2 to 3% over what you would pay anyway. And we actually think these numbers may be a slight overestimate. So I think the more important information is in the next slide, because we don't have a lot of time left, which shows the rates that we pay compared to a number of surrounding municipalities. South Burlington currently has among the lowest rates in the state and lower rates than any of these other municipalities. So with the bond, if we were to pass the $16.3 million bond, we would end up, about 6th in line among these municipalities. But an important thing to consider is something that Tom's reiterated to us many times, which is that even after we start paying those higher rates, that's probably a temporary position, because the other municipalities are going to be doing upgrades as well. So we're not, so our rates are still low. Our rates are very low now compared to other towns, and they will be higher, but probably only temporarily higher. So we're getting a really good deal at the moment. And I also want to point out right now that I want to make sure that people don't have this misconception. This will not affect property taxes. This is not a property tax increase. This is this is an increase in water and sewer rates, and it will be more in line with other municipalities. And it's a very progressive form of passing costs on to consumers, where if you use a lot of water, you will pay, or if you have a lot of toilets that are flushing, you will pay more money. If you if you have 7 toilets in your house, then you're going to pay a lot more money than if you have 2 toilets in your house. So it's a progressive form of collecting money for the service provided.
Sure. And help me understand, if you can. I know every house is different. Every ratepayer is going to pay a little different. But is there sort of an average for a home with a couple of toilets and, that we can talk about?
I don't have that in my presentation. I can't quote it, but I could look it up if we want. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
So it looks like 11 to 9% increase over the course of 5 or 6 years.
No.
To pay this
No.
off.
If we go back to slide, the first year was 2 to 3, and then it was between 1.5.
Yeah.
And I think Tom, you mentioned this is like a very
Okay, I guess I'm reading it
conservative,
wrong, yeah.
because the bottom is where we are, right?
Yeah.
Let me
I
explain this
see,
one.
got
So
it,
this
okay.
is the bottom line is
Yeah.
what our projected rate increases were going to be for the next 5 or 6
This
years
is
up
how
there
it exists.
anyway.
Okay, got
And
it.
then if the additional 16.4 million bond is passed in August, that's what we are predicting. And this is all in my very worst case scenario.
Got it. Understand. It was, I was a little confused by
and then-
that. So we're looking at a 3% increase
Or-
from
or-
where we're
2 to
at
3% or
across.
even less
And
as time goes
some years
on.
less.
Yeah.
And these are conservative, right? The increases may well be less than what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Why do residents vote on this critical infrastructure? Why is it? Help us understand, folks in
Because, well, we are a
governance. Yeah.
democracy. And when cities borrow money.
Yeah. So if folks were to get involved earlier in the process and say, like, I want to help keep the costs lower, I want to have a real understanding or be able to make an impact on this bond choice, where do they get involved in the process?
Look, I would tell you, I
before
mean,
voting?
look, the city, certainly, I think South Burlington does a really good job of reaching out to the community on lots of stuff. My own perspective, I don't know, Beth, you may differ. This is really technical engineering. I don't know that this is a place where community feedback, is really the best mechanism for figuring out how to engineer this plant. We're certainly going to have a lot of forums. We anticipate having 1 or 2 forums with the community to help them understand where this all is and why we need to do it and what it's all about. But
We've had a couple of meetings already, and I think it is a complicated project, which makes it challenging to to try and help people understand why it's necessary and how we got to the point where we need to have a bond vote. But we do have a very detailed web page on the subject. Maybe Tom could, maybe there's a
maybe
way we
throw it
could
up.
post
Bring
that
up that web
that
page.
web address. But there's a lot of information. There are places where you can click and get more information. There's even a little form there where you can put in your email address, and if you have a question, you can send in a question. We're really hoping to get people engaged because the bond vote is coming up in a little over a month, and this is an extremely important project. So I hope if people have those questions, they reach out to us and reach out to Tom, and he
I
can
think
help
if you
them
go on the
understand.
web and type in South
Yeah.
Burlington, Bartlett Bay, it should probably pop up.
SouthBurlingtonVT.gov, and
Yeah.
then there's a website. It's kind of pasted right on the front there for the next month.
It's
You'll
on the-
find more info.
It's on
it's
the
on the-
face page, yeah. Like, if you go there, it's right front and
What
center.
happens
so.
if you don't get the results that you're all hoping to get on? So voters are asked to go on
Well, again,
August
we're going to
11th
lose the
during
financing, we're
primary.
going to lose the bid, the whole thing
Yeah.
will have to be redone. We have to fix the plant, and if the bond doesn't get approved, honestly, it's just going to be more expensive.
It's going to be years down the line before we're able to do the project, unfortunately. And the way that costs have been escalating, everyone knows when they go to the grocery store, when they put gas in their tanks, they know that costs are not going down, they're going up. So my concern if this doesn't pass is that we're going to be on the hook for a lot more money because this project is, it's going to have to get done.
And in the
It's gonna
interim,
have to get
things may
done.
break. We may have permit violations, we may have, sewage discharging into the lake, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate you all for being here. For folks who are watching now, it looks like you can go to South Burlington
VT.gov.
VT.gov and learn more about this proposed bond. August 11th is when folks are going to go to the polls, or if you've requested an absentee ballot. I'm assuming, will this be on your absentee ballot as
This
well?
is actually a separate ballot, so
yeah.
you get one for the primary.
And it will come in the
and
mail
one-
if you've requested
yeah,
it.
it will come in the mail if you've
Yeah.
requested it.
So make sure that if you're filling out your ballot, you're also including your vote on the Bartlett Bay Wastewater Treatment Facility Upgrade Bond. And is there anything more that you all want to add before we close out?
Thank you so much for hosting and allow us to share this information.
Yeah,
It's
and
a really
I-
valuable service.
Kiddos,
And
thank
I
you
think
so
we'll
much for having
have
us.
some images also that you have seen of the facility. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your work. Thank you for watching, and we be well.